Ele me perguntou se a câmera do Instagram tá arrumada.
We didn't push the Instagram one. My phone is not sure. I don't have better news. Hello, everyone at home, if there is anyone there. Oh, is it working? Yes. We are starting one more study group. We are live from the Parnell, the Jubilee building here in Auckland. I always say good evening, but depending on the part of the world that you are, good morning, good afternoon. And we are going to be live today, probably just on Facebook and YouTube, and later we're going to pass it on to Instagram. We are tonight doing one more study group, so obviously in English, and we are studying the Gospel and the Spirit's book, and on every Wednesday, the last Wednesday of the month, we always do a lecture. So this month, we're gonna have a special lecture in Portuguese with a guest lecturer in Brazil. So we are gonna pass that on, not live, because the time that we meet here is the middle of the night in Brazil. So we're just gonna record that and pass it on the 31st, so 2 Wednesdays from now. So that's definitely worth passing by to have a look. If you come to the Spiritist group here in person, we are also gonna have the lecture on for us that come here that we can watch together. So we're gonna do a watch party on online and also in person here at the Parnell at the Jubilee building. Sorry, sometimes I say Parnell Library, and then I have a friend that used to work at the library here, and she used to correct me that obviously the library is the library, and the Jubilee building is the whole building. So we don't hold the meeting, the meeting inside the library. It's inside the building, right? The library is a separate space. So we are going to start by reading our, what is the name?
Living Spring?
Living Spring. I have a hard time saying the fonte part, you know. I always think about fountain, living fountain, living spring.
Translating.
Yeah.
Number 5.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Mani, for being. He's at home and he's putting the slides up for you guys that are watching online tonight. So it makes it way easier to read, right? When you are on your cell phone or even in the computer, when we're pressing the slides that way. So thank you, Mani. Can you go? Come unto me. Jesus, Matthew 11:28. Believers, hearken. To the Master's call, heeding his blessed consolations. Spiritual instructors repeated in order to communicate vibrations of spiritual comfort to their listeners. Everyone listens to the words of Christ, who invites the troubled mind and the tormented heart to seek his refreshing embrace. However, if it is easy to hear and repeat the Lord's "Come unto me," how difficult the go to him is. Here, the Master's words are poured out like a vitalizing balm, but the bonds of immediate gratification are just too strong. There, the divine invitation is heard amidst promises of renewal for the redemptive journey. But the prison of discouragement isolates the spirit behind its unyielding bars. Yonder, the call of the Most High soothes the sorrows of the disillusioned soul. But breaking free from obstacles comprised of people and things, situations, and seemingly pressing private interests is almost impossible. Jesus, our Savior, opens his loving, compassionate arms to us. A life focused on him becomes enriched with imperishable values, and in the shade of his heavenly teachings, we press onward through sanctifying toil towards our universal homeland. All believers may hear his consoling appeal, but very few show themselves to be valorous enough in the faith to go in search of his company. In short, it is very pleasant to hear the come unto me. However, can you truthfully say that you can go? You're right, it was very profound.
Impacting.
Yeah, very impactful. Would you like to do a initial prayer?
Yeah.
Can you put this on my phone, please?
All right. Brothers and sisters, incarnated and disincarnated, we welcome you all. Let us pray. Mighty God, we come to you once again, ask for you, for your bless, for your compassion, for all your love. We ask the good spirits to be around us in this moment and bless our meeting with learnings and teachings. We once again welcome all the incarnated spirits to be around us in this moment of prayer and of learnings. We ask the good spirits to push away any bad, sentimental, any feelings of ego, pride, selfishness, anger that may be on our way of our learning tonight. So be it.
Thank you so much. So we are on the Gospel. We're going to start with the Gospel, chapter 20. No,
Chapter
Chapter
21, item 9,
21.
slide 22.
9 or 8?
Huh?
8 or 9?
21,
21.
item 9.
What is the number of the slide?
22.
22.
Next.
I love that fast. When you say too many numbers, I get like,
Sorry.
interrupted. So we are sitting on this, we have been studying this chapter for today, the third week. So the name of the chapter is,
There will be false Christs and false prophets.
thank you. I have lots of help today, always nice. So we talked, does anyone want to talk about what we talked last week?
Yes, I can talk a little bit.
Yeah.
So last week we discussed the items 6 and 6 to 8. And the first part was talking about do not believe all spirits. And on 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the incarnated false prophets. And last week, we focused more on the spirits. So the same way that the incarnated people can, what the word, put us on the wrong path. The spirits can do the same, so they can try to
Misguide, mislead.
mislead us.
You forgot that word last week as well.
Yeah, true. That's the same word. But then they can pass false information. They can try to play with us, so they don't want us to evolve to go to the right path. So, and for them, it's easier to do than the incarnated spirits. And it was talking about that. And then the second lesson was a spirit teaching. It was talking more about false prophets, both the incarnated and the disincarnated. And it was an interesting reading because after explaining the problems that we have on our society nowadays, the spirit Louis, he encouraged us to follow Christ's teachings, follow the people that produce good fruits, and to see if you can figure out that the person is producing good fruits. Okay, you can follow them, but if not, don't go and try to look for the good fruits because it's always going to be there. So the same way that we have the freedom to do the right thing and the bad thing. Christ always going to have their missionaries to give their example. So we just need to look for those people.
Good. So today we are probably going to end up reading a couple more,
I think that's
maybe one item actually, because the second item is quite big, but we'll see how it goes. So anyways, the two items that we're going to read today, just talk a little more about who are the false prophets, and then goes again talking about spirits and how to recognize false prophets. So for this one, does anyone feel inspired, wants to read?
characteristics of the true prophets. Item 9. Distrust false prophets. This recommendation is useful at all times, but especially at times of transition, when, like this one, a transformation of humanity is in the making and the multitude of ambitious and scheming individuals set themselves up as reformers and messiahs. It is against such impostors that one must be on guard, and it is the duty of the honest person to unmask them. You will undoubtedly ask how they can be recognized. These are the signs. The command of an army is entrusted only to a competent general capable of leading it. So, do you think that God would be less prudent than humans? Be certain that he entrusts important missions only to those he knows are capable of fulfilling them. For great missions are heavy burden that would crush individuals who are too weak to bear them. As in all matters, the master must know more than the apprentice. In order to enable humankind to advance morally and intellectually, individuals who are superior in morality and intelligence are required. That is why missionary welcome and trust to spirits who are already very advanced after having completed their trials in previous lifetimes, and who now incarnate in this object. If they are not superior to the environment in which they must act, their efforts will be fruitless. That said, we must conclude that the true missionaries of God must justify the mission by their ascendancy, virtues, and greatness, and the results and moralizing influence of their deeds. Let us draw a further conclusion. If by their character, virtues, and intelligence, they are either beneath the role they attribute to themselves or the personage under whose name they harbor themselves, they are nothing but histrions of low rank who do not even know how to emulate the model. Another consideration is that the most true missionaries of God are unaware of the fact they carry out the mission to which they have been called through the force of their genius. Second, by a hidden power that inspires and guides them without their knowing and with no premeditated plan. In other words, true prophets are revealed by their actions. They are discovered by others, whereas false prophets present themselves as messengers from God. The former are humble and modest. The latter,
The letter.
the latter are proud and full of themselves. They speak with arrogance, and like all deceitful persons, always seem fearful of not being believed. We have seen some impostors passing themselves off as apostles of Christ, or as Christ himself. And what is shameful for humankind is that they have found people
Go.
gullible enough to give credit to such turpitudes. Nevertheless, one very consideration should open the eyes of the most blind, which is, if Christ were to reincarnate on earth, he would come with all his power and all his virtues, unless we are not, unless we are well to believe that he had degenerate, which would be absurd. Now, in the same way that if just one God's attribute were taken away, you will no longer have God. If just one of Christ's virtues were taken away, you will no longer have Christ. Should those who represent themselves as Christ possess all his virtues? That's the question. Observe them, scrutinize their ideas and actions, and you will realize that more than anything else, they lack of distinctive qualities of Christ, humility and charity, whereas they do possess what he did not, greed and pride. Moreover, notice at this very moment, there are many supposed Christs in various countries, just there are many supposed Elijahs, St. John's, or St. Peter's, and that obviously they cannot all be true. You can be certain that they are individuals who are exploiting the credulity of others and who find it comfortable to live at the expense of those who listen to them. Therefore, distrust false prophets, especially during a time of renewal, because many apostles will say they are messages from God. They provide themselves with a vain satisfaction while on earth, but a terrible justice awaits them. You can be sure of that. Erastus, Paris, 1862.
Sorry, I should have really broke that in half. You were there catching your breath.
Yeah, my coffee was like playing in it. It's very connected to the previous one because, of course, when you talk about the false prophets or the good prophets, you kind of have to mention the another one so you can show that one is false, one is correct. It's very interesting to think about it how the gospel, the Christianism, the path of Jesus, it's actually very simple. There is not much complicated things to do. Like they say, if Jesus come back, he will have all his virtues. And as much as I do this analogy in a fun way, Jesus will look at us and say, what do you need? I already told you everything. We already have all the lessons that we needed here to be good. So sometimes it's very easy to identify these false prophets because instead they help and guide you to the path of Jesus, they will boost your ego. They will try to fortify you as a human being with those kind of things that you shouldn't have, such as pride, such as egocentrism, and things like that. They will feed you with the food that you've been looking for. So it's very interesting how sometimes, oh, you don't even go to the prophet level, but everyone who does good, they're not gonna tell you what you want to hear. They will just tell you what's the good. And I think that just shows that in times of transition, in times of need, people will go looking for something. I know you mentioned about transitioning and there could be a worldwide mentality, but also could be something happening in your life when something really strong happened to you and your intellectual cannot process that right away. You are in time for need. So you pretty much open this window where you ask for something and the false prophets can act in this and can come to you and giving what you think is good for you to move further, but in actually they're just misguiding you. And like it says, like Erasmus says, they will present themselves. Or like we say in Portuguese, the one who doesn't know, teach. Guys heard that? No?
Yeah. Quem não sabe,
Quem não sabe,
ensina.
Yeah. So they will present themselves, and the good prophets, the right one, they don't even know what they're doing. They don't even know that they is good. They're just doing it because it's something that from the inside.
One thing that I find really funny is they put even in intellect the definition of true prophets. And the difference is that if you are a true prophet, you're not going to say that you are a prophet. The others is going to discover you because of your actions. And if you're saying that you're a prophet, it means that you are not. So it's an easy way to understand. So if everyone starts saying, "Oh no, I'm coming to bring you the the new commandments and the new way of doing charity, or the new way of like following the what God wants us to do, things like that. We don't need anything new. We've barely understood everything that Christ said. So there is still a lot of things for us to think about or to meditate on top of everything that Christ said when he was here on earth. And that's it. So I think the message is clear, and like Dogan said, there is nothing new, and we just need to keep working on the same things until we are good enough, so we don't need to be in a trial and expiations world.
Nice.
The other thing that I think is interesting in this part is because for me it's really logical and it's easy to understand. Like it's not doesn't have shades. It's like straight. And you know, yeah, and you know exactly what is a prophet, as Andrea mentioned, and also the comparison that they did with the general, like makes sense. We understand that no one will do something like that. They're not prepared for that. And this is a way that we can use to identify who is real prophet, apart from like they saying they're not a prophet. So I think this part is also really interesting to remember that if that person is doing that naturally, it's because they're capable of doing it. And they don't need to mention they are doing it because they know that they know like inside of them that they are real and they should be doing it without saying to anyone. It's natural. Exactly.
Well, I was thinking about the same part about it. So he talks about the command of any army is entrusted only to a competent general capable of leading it. So you think that God would be less prudent than humans? So on that saying that God would never let someone that to come to work to lead or to help humankind to evolve if the spirit was not ready, right? So Jesus was ready and capable to come and help when he did. Moses was ready and capable to come and help when he did. So the revelations happened when they were supposed to happen, when we were prepared to listen. And if we think about a pattern there, we as humankind didn't feel we were ready to listen. We attacked them. We said, "Oh, this makes no sense. Like no one's going to follow this guy. What is this that you're talking about is so foreign." So no actual prophet, no one that is here to actually help us see light, or that we will actually help humankind move forward. It's gonna come bringing old news, right? I think that was something I started think. I thought about it as I was reading it. Now that we're talking about, it makes no sense. Someone that comes to Earth now to claim being Jesus, to talk about something that Jesus already talked about, and we know that Jesus' mission started with him incarnating here on Earth, but started when Earth was created, and he incarnated here to help us evolve, and his mission haven't finished. So he's still the governor of planet Earth. So why would he reincarnate again? It makes no sense to bring the message that is already here and hopefully lives amongst the majority of us. The world is filled with Christians, true Christians, and some that only say they are, but lots of us believe that Jesus was here, believe the message, and are trying to do a little better. So we don't need Jesus to return to make a do-over. We're probably gonna fail all over again if he comes. So that's not what we need right now. It's a really different time from when Jesus was here, when Jesus incarnated. It's been 2000, more than 2000 years, and the needs of planet Earth are very different. So because we have so much knowledge, not just on science, but also religion grew so much, from all religions, not just the religion that we live, right? The Spiritism, but also if you think about Catholicism and how it was when it started and how it is now, all religions are also hopefully evolving and changing. So hopefully, the planet is evolving and changing. So we shouldn't be relying on the same message, pass it on the same way, right? To have an impact, to make change, it needs to be different from what it was before. So if a prophet will happen, or and prophet again, we talked about on the first week about what the word means, right? Um, and I find it quite odd, like using the word prophet, probably because I think about Portuguese and I keep thinking about this person that predicts instead of, instead of, the true meaning of it, that I hardly ever would call Jesus prophet, you know. But so if it happens again, and we do have someone that is to carry a message or to lead people or to change, I do think we have lots of spirits that are incarnated, that are here to change lots of things in a smaller scale than Jesus did, right? So how many groundbreaking people in science, how many groundbreaking people towards helping us towards figuring out what's going on with the environment, or a solution for it, or how many people now, how many winners of the Nobel Peace Prize we have. So those people are making a huge difference for a small amount of people compared to the rest of the world, right? But the difference that they make is huge on the place that they are. So why cannot all of us be prophets in what we do, you know? So I think when we're talking about true prophets, and it's always gonna and he talks about Jesus compares, like, oh, Jesus is always gonna be Jesus. If you remove one quality out of him, he's not Jesus anymore. Just like God, if you remove one of its qualities, he's not God anymore. So if you remove charity or humility out of Jesus, he's not Jesus anymore, because this is what confirms that Jesus is Jesus, right? So this is how we can recognize false prophets. If the person that claims to be a prophet wants the recognition, wants people to follow, make sure everybody is watching, make sure they have public, they don't have the humility anymore. If they are not out helping people in every occasion that they can, it's removed. If the speech is not helping anyone, it's lots of words and very little action. The charity is removed from them, so it's never going to be an actual prophet. So the next bit is going to talk about.
Just want to quick mention something. Barbara said something really interesting when she was explaining. She said, for me and to a lot of us that are listening, it's very straightforward. You get the message. It is very obvious, and it's really interesting when we get to a part where it's obvious and it makes so much sense for us. For you to be a general, for you to have the qualities of a general, you would have to be in a war before. You would have to have many positions. For many, many years, you have to study the war. So you have the qualities, and then so you become a general. For you to be a good person, for you to, not necessarily the prophet level as we think, for you to be a good medium, for you to be a good person, that is, you're already going to have this inside you, the charity, the humble, the love, the compassion, the thinking about others. So we only know what we know, and that's one of the biggest, the challenge for us as humans. Some people do bad, but they don't know it's bad yet. They don't fully understand what it is. And the fact that you can see it and you think that's very straightforward and very easy to understand means you already have good skills. You already have what it needs to be good, to do good. And that correlates to the living spring that we talk about. When Jesus said, "Can you come to me? Can you come and follow me?" You know, it's back to what Andre always says: you're going to be blamed for the good that you could be doing it, but you haven't done it yet. So the fact that you can see that shows that you're capable of doing good. So you're capable of, helping the collective evolution of everyone. So it's a good sign.
Yeah, I think it's. Anyways, I lost the track of my thought. So we are going to talk about, maybe we're going to end up reading only half of this number 10, because it's quite long. But now it talks about false prophets in the spirit world. So this number 9 that we read obviously talk more about people when people try to portray something that they are not. And now it's going to talk on how that can happen also with disincarnated spirits. Does anyone want to read?
I can.
She's ready with the book
Yeah.
already.
Until where should I read?
Maybe we're gonna read about half, but there's a bit that is.
At mercilessly?
If
That's too long. Yeah, I think just before mercilessly.
False prophets in the spiritual world. False prophets are not found only among incarnates. They are also, in much large numbers, found among proud spirits who, under the false appearance of love and charity, sow disunion and retard the work of humankind's emancipation, infiltrating it with their absurd theories, which they make their mediums believe. And to better fascinate those they want to exploit in order to give more weight to their theories, they unscrupulously adorn themselves with names that humans do not pronounce except with respect. Those are the spirits who sow the seeds of antagonism among groups, who compel them to isolate themselves from each other and to look at each other with suspicion. This alone should be enough to unmask them, because by acting in such a manner, they themselves offer the most categorical denial of who they claim to be. Blind are those persons, therefore, who allow themselves to fall into such a blatant trap. Furthermore, there are many other means for recognizing them. Spirits of the order to which they say they belong must not only be very good, but eminently rational as well. So then, pass their theories through their sieve of reason and common sense, and you see what remains of them. You agree with me that every time a spirit indicates as a remedy for the ills of humankind, or as a means of achieving its transformation, utopia and impracticable things, or childish and ridiculous measures, or when it formulates a theory contradicted by the most basic notions of science, it can only be an ignorant and deceitful spirit. On the other hand, you can be sure that if the truth is not always appreciated by certain individuals, it is always appreciated by the good sense of the masses, which is one more criterion. If two principles contradict each other, you have the measure of their intrinsic worth by seeking out which one enjoys greater significance and more sympathy. In fact, it would be illogical to believe that a doctrine that saw the number of its adherents diminish could be truer than another that sees its number increase. In waiting the truth to reach everybody, God does not confine it within a closed circle. He makes it appear at different points so that everywhere the light may be alongside the darkness.
Thank you.
So I think continue with the previous one. This one is for me straightforward. Is really nice to see like the logical line of thought that they have, and like it's really easy if you're paying attention to see who's saying the correct things and who are doing the correct things. Because as I said, it's not a matter of just saying. You need to be to act in the same way that you were saying. Otherwise, it's not a point to do that. And I think it's really, really interesting. And as they said, they don't confine the information that needs to be passed on to a specific group. It's not exclusive. It should be like reaching everybody. So that's why if a group say they should have that message only for them and like they are the way for everyone to have that message, probably something's not right. and it needs to be evaluated. So yeah, that's what I do.
If you go the other way.
Yeah, I think that's really good, that last message, and that's why we cannot say that a religion is the only way to get to God or get to perfection. And I will always go back to the pathway to light, the book, and it's really nice that when they are telling the story of the humankind, the earth, and they stop on certain parts of the history when they're talking about the beginning of the Roman Empire and things like that. They said, okay, here they have some missionaries that will bring the message of Christ or the message of God. And now here on China, they don't have any connections. At the same time, they're receiving another doctrine, and that's going to contain some of the message that the people at their time, is going to be able to understand and move on and keep evolving. And that's it's really good, because if you're not in the Spiritism, you're going to get to the same place that are people that are in the Spiritism. And we are where we need it. So if we are here and we receive those messages, and we can understand, or we can check if they are really good messages, because it's talking about false prophets. But if you can bypass these, and okay, now I have a real message, now I'm going to be the one that's going to enjoy the most that message. And if I'm on Catholic church, I'm going to be receiving the Jesus Christ teachings in another way. But with that message from that time, I will be able to move forward the same way that I'm here. So that's a really good message, and really comforts me, because it doesn't mean that I'm in the wrong place, or doesn't mean that anyone is in the wrong place as well.
Yeah, just like the last chapter, we'll talk about false prophets. They are spirits. So we have to understand that they are spirits, they are false as well. And they will misguide, and they will try to mislead. Like we always say, you know, your vibration will match with the spirit vibration. So if you're a false prophet, that's the vibration you're probably going to match with. And that's what you're going to receive, an influence to actually do bad. And like Andrea says, that Spiritism did not create spirit. Spirit exists way longer before that. Different on the planets, you know, the intelligent principle exists a long time ago. So the Spiritists organized some facts and put that in a doctrine way for people to understand, but it's nothing hidden. It's nothing mystic that only when I study for this long I will know this knowledge. It's everything there. All the knowledge is there. Everything's open. Everyone can go and read. Everyone can go and learn. Everyone can go and practice what Jesus says, which is the hard part. But yeah, I think if I say more, I'll get the second part of that.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll probably stop on this one. I think it's like you're saying to Louis. I think the first thing to think about is that everyone's going to disincarnate, right? So being a great, very evolved person, or being a not so evolved spirit, everyone's going to disincarnate. So why would we think that every message that comes from disincarnated spirits is trustworthy, when we wouldn't trust every single person in Earth, right? So I think everybody has a lot of I don't want to say mistrust, but do judge and analyze a lot what general people tell us, right? And a lot of people tend to believe that if he came from the spiritual plane, if he came from a disincarnated person, if he comes from a spirit, that is disincarnated, or from a medium, you take it straight away. You just In Portuguese we would say you swallow it.
Blind
You just, blind faith, you just take it as true. So obviously that can't happen. We should have the rationalized faith at all times for everything. And that doesn't mean mistrusting everything, but keeping our eyes open to those messages, to what we believe, especially because we know how important and how serious mediumship is. It's not a gift. It's not something that a person has that should be used for fun. It's really about is a mission, and it's something that the person that has the mediumship will have to learn how to handle and learn how to control their faculties, including the way they see, they study, and the way they behave in life, in incarnated life, to be able to. What I really like the sentence that he used, to be able to use the sieve of reason. I thought it was so powerful. Like, makes me feel really smart saying that. Like the sieve of reason, So passing everything through the sieve, through the aquela peneira of reason, right? So when you are not only when you are an active medium, but also when you hear from people that are mediums, because all of us can fall in this trap with false prophets, right? And we already saw for sure many messages online that people sign as Bezerra de Menezes, they sign as, and like the text says on this first part, says like, by names that are pronounced only for, as important, right? That's what the spirits that are trying to trick people will use. Why would I just sign Carol when I can say I'm Chico Xavier, right? So it's how are you gonna trust me? So obviously, spirits will have their fun, will have the way of passing the message that they want to pass. And I find quite interesting that says at the beginning also talks about how spirits do that for different reasons, right? Usually to throw people off their path because they have quite a bit of fun. And that's a word that appears a lot in Portuguese in the gospel and in the Spiritist book. Spiritus zombeteiros, and I always found it funny. Like when I was younger, I always found it funny. But yeah, this type of spirit, we have a lot of fun with people believing that they are someone else, with people believing in that not so right message. And obviously, again, we fall into that place that the messages that come through people, or they come even to you, if it is from disincarnated spirits, like Togun said, will only happen if you're vibrating on the same frequency, right? So that's why it's so important to study, to take care of our thoughts and our vibration, because if we are looking into attracting only high vibration, good spirits, we also need to work on ourselves for that. And the truth is that evolved spirits don't have time for the type of thing. So all these messages, all this, you go, and now in the Spiritist book, we're going to talk about that, about like fortune telling and predicting the future. Why would an evolved spirit that is trying to work humanity towards evolving would stop to say, but you're going to find a boyfriend in a few weeks, like, and then go back to work? Like, it makes no sense. So if we stop to actually analyze and rationalize what we are, the messages that we are having, even if the spirit's really good at tricking and imitating someone's language, there will be a slip of the tongue. There's something that they say that makes no sense. So there are obviously, just like in the art world, there is a way of analyzing texts that were written by famous authors, and paintings that were made by famous painters, because you can see the traces in the way, the style, and the way that they use color. You can see that the same way can be done with messages that are from people that claim to be Bezerra de Menezes. If you read his work and the messages that we know that are actually from him, lots of those new messages that claim to be don't make a lot of sense. Either they contradict older messages, or on the course of the usually really long ones, there are something that is not quite there with Spiritism, or it doesn't say. Yeah, exactly. So there is like just a slip there that you can tell, oh, this doesn't sound right, you know. Or even straight away, some of them you can tell by the content, right? Why would Bezos Menezes, who must be so busy at this moment, Bezos Menezes was in that incarnation, right? A doctor and very evolved spirit. So with COVID, must be working like hora extra, and the spiritual plan would stop to pass a message that talks about something that has nothing to do with everything that's going on at the moment. So it's just really a matter of exercising that criticism on what we read and see here.
Mani mentioned here as well, the spirit of Erasmus was very clear when it comes to analyzing the mediumistic phenomena. We can find such warnings in lots of books of codification. The spirit book, the medium book, is that what it said?
A medium's book?
Medium's book, Heaven and Hell, also talks a lot about that, right? Just like an academic person, if you engage a discussion with them about topic that requires further knowledge, they can hold the conversation. That's one way you can test a bad spirit or a bad prophet or someone who is giving you false advice, a false knowledge. If you keep asking, if you keep digging, they're not able to hold the lie, because the lie is superficial. It's about a one sentence that the person learns somewhere, they hear it from someone else. They don't own that knowledge.
Mm-hmm. True. You just give them rope. That's what say Portuguese.
8.
We stopped. Can you just write it down for us? That we stopped on 10 on mercilessly. Just write the word so we remember. 10 on mercilessly. Mercilessly. That's a long word.
Yeah, it is. I'll copy it. Item 10. Chapter 21, right?
Yes.
And we are on the spirits. Chapter 8, question 447, 040.
Oh, I got it right. 8. So we're also on the Spiritist book. We also have been in the same chapter for a little while now, way more than just 3 weeks, because it's a much longer chapter. So Spiritist book is divided quite differently from the Gospel. So we have been talking about emancipation of the soul, and we talked on this chapter. We talked about disincarnation, about dreams, about ecstasy, about the sleepwalking, and lots of other components. If you missed the other studies, it's definitely worth going back to the beginning of the challenge and giving it I was going to say a quick read, but not so quick read. Give it a read in detail, or watch the studies that we have been posting on Facebook, on YouTube, to catch up with the chapter. The challenge of the chapter.
It's a challenging chapter, right?
Because it's a lot of, obviously the whole book has a lot of important information, but this is quite probably what we have been studying for, I think almost the whole year now, this chapter. So it's quite nice that you catch up if you're gonna keep coming to the study groups or watching us online. All right, so because we're starting a new item in the questions, maybe we won't even talk about what we talked last week. We can just start straight away. So, Andrea, do you want to start reading?
Yes.
Please.
Second side, question 447. Does the phenomenon called second sight have any connection to dreaming and sonambulism? All of this is one and the same thing. What you call second sight is, again, the spirit in the state of greater freedom, even for through, even though the body is not asleep. Second sight is the sight of the soul.
No.
Is second sight permanent? The faculty, yes. The ability to exercise it, no. On worlds less material than yours, spirits disengage themselves more easily, and while still maintaining articulated language, they communicate with each other through thought only. Second sight is also a permanent faculty for the majority of them. Their normal state may be compared to that of your lucid somnambulists, and that is also why they manifest themselves to you more easily than those who are incarnated in denser bodies.
It's really big. For now. Does second sight develop spontaneously or by the will of those who possess it? Most of the time it is spontaneous, but the will can often play a large role too. Thus, you can take certain individuals called fortune tellers, for example, some of whom possesses this faculty of the second sight, and you will see that it is their own will that helps them enter such a state, what you call vision.
450. Is the second sight capable of being developed through practice? Yes. And 40 ways lead to progress, and the view that covers things becomes clearer.
So we can stop for a biblical commentary now.
I can start.
Yeah.
I really like the comparison that they do on the book of Genesis when they're talking about miracles and they're explaining the second sight, and they give the example of Jesus when he is in the boat with the apostles, not apostles, but the followers, and they are like the whole day trying to fish, and they cannot find any fish. So they're trying, and nothing comes in the, I forgot the name of the
Net.
The net.
Yeah, the net. So then they ask for Jesus' help, and Jesus say, okay, throw the net there, and they point in the direction, and then they throw the net, and then a lot of fish appear. And they say, oh, Jesus materialized the fish, and then put inside the net, and then when he brought to the surface, it was a lot of fish, and that's not it. And Jesus was using the second sight, so he was seeing with his perispirit, and they saw that under the water there was like a collection of fish. I don't know how you say that in English. But then when they say, oh, that's the fish, so let's throw the net. Yeah. But that's a really good example. So there is no miracle. It's just the ability to see with the perispirit. And that's how Jesus was able to figure out that, oh, that's a place that there is fish. And basically, that's the ability to have all, not just the sight, but all the perispirit characteristics more free for you to use instead of being closed into the body that you don't have any of those capabilities.
I don't have a lot to say on this part, but I think it's really interesting, like the comparison that you do with the words that are more popular words.
Yeah.
Like we, the ability to decide is really hard for us, like for the majority of us. But this will be easier once you are in more evolved worlds because it'll be like less material, more ethereal.
Yeah.
And yeah, and
So it becomes normal.
yeah, it'll be normal for everyone.
Do you want to go next to?
Hmm?
Do you want to talk next?
No, I think it's very straightforward, really.
Did I move forward or back? Or
You're going
forward?
back.
Back.
One more.
Oh no, I mean like if you want to make any comments.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
I'll wait for build up a bit more.
Okay. So just with the second sight, I find that it's nice that it explains a little bit. If you don't know what second sight is, then you start reading and you kind of understand what it's talking about, right? So it says that does the second sight can be compared to dreaming or to sonambulism? And it says like, oh, it's all the same thing, right? When you are less connected to the material body, you can see with your spirit, so with your soul, which is the incarnated, right? So you can see with your with the eyes of the soul. So you can see with the sight of the soul. So it's basically the same as being dreamy, right? But you're awake. And then he asks if it is permanent, and he says that the faculty it is. So you always have it. All of us have it. But the ability to exercise it, it's not permanent. So we know that there is a lot of, especially when we're kids, most of us use the second sight a lot, and we are very connected to the spiritual world still. So lots of kids see spirits all the time, imaginary friends, and etc. And then as you grow, if you don't exercise it, you don't use it, and it goes away, or because you don't have the need really of having it, it just disappears. And as we get more and more connected to the material world, you also just not lose it, but it just fades it. Because again, all of us will use it when you are asleep, at least when you're asleep, right? So he says it's quite interesting, and then he goes saying, oh, so if the ability to exercise it is not, and it's interesting that he uses the word of exercise, because then he says if it is being capable of being developed, the 450. And yes, because effort always leads to progress. Hi. So effort always leads to progress. So um, we are capable of developing it, but before I was talking about exercising it. So obviously we know that mediumship is something that you need to practice to be able to actually dominate it, to actually be able to control it properly. So then 449 says if it is spontaneous or if it comes with will. So we were just talking about false prophets, right? So if someone so the second sentence says, so you can take certain individuals called fortune tellers, for example, some of whom possesses this faculty of second sight, and you will see that is their own will that helps them enter such a state, what you call vision. So because the person wants to keep that channel open, they can do it. But what sort of spirit will keep connected to that person that really wants to keep that channel open? For what reason, right? Either for, and he's talking about fortune tellers, right? So for money or for maybe to impress people. So it's a matter of pride. So what type of spirit will actually be connected to this incarnated spirit, right? So it is something you can work, and you can actually use it, but to what mean? That's something to really think about. If you exercise it, what is the
reason.
the reason for it? What is the reason behind it?
The fact that says spontaneous is interesting because occasionally cases of greater need that will happen. An accident is about to happen, not supposed to happen. Someone will have that connection, or you may have a dream about someone who's about to do something bad. And it's interesting how they say the fortune tellers. We have an expression in Brazil. Don't know how I'm going to translate that, but we say that the call starts from the spirit world, right? We don't call them; they call us. We just answer the phone. It's something like that, right?
It's a one-way call.
One way.
It's
The spirit is not standing next to the fortune teller, waiting for the fortune teller to ask them a question, and then they're gonna answer the question and like the slave, like they work for the fortune teller.
Yeah.
That's not very reasonable to exist, is it?
I think we can read,
Another round?
yeah, I think at least another two more,
Okay.
at least two more.
Which one we stop?
We're now
450.
451.
What's the one?
Yeah.
Oh, there was a part.
Oh, sorry, the end of
Yeah.
the one. I'll just read the end of the one and then you read 451 to go.
Yeah.
Is this faculty linked to one's physical organization? Certainly, physical organization plays its role, and there are organizations that are incompatible with this faculty. So, sorry, I'll just comment on, maybe we'll comment on that one before we move.
Yeah.
Because then he's going to talk about families, and that was important. Sorry, I missed the one. So, is physical organization important? So it's talking about the physical body, right? And there's Ipsos studies that talk about the pituitary gland and how is connected to, no, not pituitary, sorry, with the gland that is connected to, but it's going to help me right now in a few seconds, I can tell. My second side to tell me that he's going to help me. The gland that is connected to mediumship and how mediums have the gland quite developed in their brain. So it has also to do pineal gland. Thank you, Manny. Thank you. It's better than Google because even if he doesn't know, he can Google and write that. But I'm sure he will. So the pineal gland is larger or more developed in people that are mediums, like they actually use their mediumship here on Earth. So you don't need to have some factors of your physical body need to also be ready to use this second part. 451.
451. Why does the second side appears
Hereditary.
in certain families? It is due to a similarity of organizations transmitted like other physical qualities, and afterwards development of the faculty through a kind of education, which is also transmitted from one to the next. And
Is it true that certain circumstances can cause second sight to develop? Illness, the approach of danger, or a larger crisis may develop it. In such instances, the body is sometimes in a particular state that allows the spirit to see what you cannot see with the eyes of your body. Times of crisis, calamity, and great emotion, in short, all causes of mental overexcitement sometimes bring about the development of second sight. It seems that in the presence of danger, Providence has given us the means of calling on it. All persecuted sects and individuals offer numerous instances of this fact.
That's it. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think after talking about the fortune teller and you're explaining how the physical, we need to have a different physical body to be able to use the second sight. And we have other means to get the message from the spirit world. So I don't think that's both bad for us to try to develop something that sometimes we cannot handle at the moment, or it's not going to be good for us. So if you really, that's my belief. So if you really need to receive a message from the spirits, and you are connected with the good spirits and you are following the right path, you're going to receive that message in one way or the other. So you don't need to try to look for it. I mean, constantly.
So it keep ringing the phone.
Yeah.
The call gonna come from there.
And it's interesting that the last question about sometimes it's possible to have that second sight, and I believe it's related to the instinct. Instinct. So they say that, oh, you have the instinct to avoid that and to be able to preserve your life. And all the animals has that, and we have in a certain point as well. And here on just looking through the material world, we can just think about the instinct, but we know that sometimes the spirit is going to allow us to see something in the future or have that oh, I think I need to go in a different way or in a different direction. And all those things are related to receiving the message from the spirits direct instead of from another incarnated. And usually it's when those kind of things happen because we need to move our path. We are not going to the right one, so it's a illness, it's something that it's a fatal, like saying that here that large crisis is going to allow us to get that knowledge. So we move out from that path and go to the right one that is not going to have all those kind of dangers in general.
Yeah, so just adding to what Andrea said, we have the instinct to act in situations like that when it's happening at the time. But we have like a program to follow while incarnated, and sometimes some stuff like that happened. Because if you had followed a different path, we probably would finish there at that moment, but because we changed what you're doing, we have more time to like develop and help more people maybe. And sometimes those things happen to see if you're like aligned with what we're supposed to be doing and to help you wake up to what we should be doing as well. So for example, if you're dreaming that you're going to die the next day, you can pay attention to that, or you can just not pay attention. We have the signs. We are advised when we need to in many ways and any way possible. We just need to pay attention to those signs and follow like what we believe that is right and follow our instincts as well. Otherwise, we can't follow the correct path. But it's up to us. It's our decision to do that. If you don't believe in anything like that, or if you don't want to like pay attention to the signs, we won't see what is happening and we go to the wrong path. So I think it's another opportunity to remember that we always should be like synchronization, forgot the word. Syncing with the good spirits, so then we can like understand when the message is shown to us.
They talk a lot about development, and it's good to understand that the development of your second sight, the development of your spiritual qualities are strictly related to the development of your intellectual morals. So the better you are, the more good you do, that's how you're going to develop. I grew up inside a spiritual temple, and I remember when I was young, I was fascinated by this super cool, powerful things that other people could do, and I thought it was amazing, and I really want to do it, da da da. And it's interesting they mentioned about families. I was probably born in a family with people that understood that a lot, so they could help me and develop. Like Barbara said, there is always a plan, there is always a way of doing it. However, God is fair. So this is not something that someone has and another one doesn't, or is a royal family thing. That's not how it works. The fact that comes from the family, they will actually would instruct me, oh, you want to develop this? I say, yeah. I say, okay, go clean the temple. Go, you see that person said, go talk to them. And for many, many years, the only thing I will do is cleaning, it's organizing, it's talking to people who were sad, or talking to people that are waiting in the queue in the line. And that's what I was doing. I was developing my morals. I was developing my intellect in certain ways where they told me to read many things. So yes, they talk a lot about development in there, and that's what it is. There's no secret form or ritual that you have to do it. It's just the fact that you're a good person and you take things seriously and you study them in a serious way, and that's when you're gonna vibrate and make you sink. It's hard to say that word. It looks like it's sinking.
Yeah, it's thinking.
Yeah, it's the same way with the good spirits. And again, yeah, it mentioned the time of crisis, right? The calamities, where the spirits have to act on and they will do what they have to do, so something doesn't go super wrong.
Yeah, I think it's very clear. The more we read in this chapter, the clearer, well, in this part of second side, it clearly becomes that you definitely need to be we can all be connected to the spiritual world as much as we want to, right? So the more I think we all know people that have, and you guys are talking about instinct, and I think it is more of like a sixth sense. So something that is not so much part of our like instinct is so much of our physical body also responds, you know, like the heat is coming, you can feel it, your instinct is to get away from it or move your hand or run from it because it's a fire. So this is what keeps us alive, right? So animals have it, etc. But this sixth sense that we get from, it's not something that you see, it's not something that you hear, it's just something that you feel. Something that is not necessarily and when you're seeing with the soul, it's not so much about hearing, but much more about feeling it and understanding with your soul than it is something that we can explain with our physical body. So if you are connected to this, to the spiritual plane, to good spirits, most of your time, like I feel like my mom is like that. Like she all the time, she just has those. With those insights, you know, we should do this. Like, oh, let's just. We have our dog was sick once, and she said, "Oh, tomorrow we should just bring her to the spirit center." And we did. We took the dog there. And at 6 o'clock, and we just bring some water. And I think we just bring her there to where the lectures are, and hopefully she'll be fine. And then we did. We took her there, and the dog was so quiet. She just lay down on one of our laps for like half an hour. We sat there and prayed for a little bit, sang a couple of spiritist songs, and went back home. And then the next day she was walking again. Oh, happy, she was fine. You know, and how do you have this type of insight? Is obviously you were quite connected to the spiritual plane, to good spirits, and you just don't differentiate anymore. So we learn how to trust that sixth sense, that voice, that to trust what we call our gut, right? That we doubt so much in our day-to-day lives. So it's not a matter of exercising the phone line to keep hearing that. It's to working on ourselves so we clear the line for when the message, like Barbara said, when the message comes, we don't doubt it. We just live through it. Sorry, we're gonna finish now.
What is the number of the file?
The question or the
Oh.
file?
Question 4. Which one did you read the last?
I read 42 less, so 43. And
53.
this slide is 43 too.
53. Question 53.
Yeah, 450.
53, sorry.
Yeah.
250.
I didn't write the number of the slide of the gospel because
53 and the slide is 43.
yeah, in the gospel, do you remember the slide number?
I know, but we can check it after.
Okay, check that.
Alright. So we are gonna, do you wanna put the music first, Tolu?
Yeah.
So we are gonna now do our collective vibration. Thank you everyone at home that participated. Thank you everyone here. We are gonna now do our collective vibration and do our final prayer. So we now, after a great discussion, after a lot of information, we prepare to calm our minds down. How do we stop the thoughts from coming? The ideas, the doubts, the lists, the to-dos to come into our minds. We don't stop them. We never stop our thoughts. We just let them flow through our minds and focus on other words, focus on this feeling, focus on our breathing, on our beating heart. We focus now on the vibrations that our hearts produce. Our heart that beats incessantly inside our chests, that pumps the blood which flows into our veins. Our heart at this moment, what is vibrating? Is this vibration coming from your chest? An anxious vibration? Are we worried about something? Are we happy? Are we sad to live? Are we concerned? Are we tired? We make an effort now to transform this vibration. And if it helps, you can imagine a light. You can imagine a vibration with a form, a shape, pumping through our chests, transforming itself into a healing vibration, into a powerful vibration of love, of charity, that pumps inside of us, that if we listen quietly, even makes a sound. This vibration comes out of us to match the environment around us, where now, for sure, quite a few spirits disincarnated match the environment around us, help us prepare the environment around us. We all together, incarnated or disincarnated, vibrate towards the same goal. And together we ask, God our Father, Jesus our brother, we ask your permission to finish one more Spiritist group, Allan Kardec Spiritist group meeting. We ask that you take this powerful, charitable, loving vibration towards those people living in a complicated situation, far more complicated than anything that we are living here in New Zealand. We pray for our brothers and sisters that are living through war in Ukraine, in Russia, in the Middle East, in so many places where they go through violence in a daily basis but never makes the news. We ask that our brothers and sisters in pain receive this healing vibration coming from our humble hearts. We reach out also to our brothers and sisters disincarnating or suffering through COVID or other diseases that are hurting their physical bodies and that are numbing their spirits, their souls. We think about now the ones that we know that are in need of an extra energy boost, of an extra hug, some extra love, that they may also receive this vibration coming from our arms, from our hug. We ask that you bless also those that couldn't accompany our study today, that they may receive the benefits of this vibration. And last but not least, we thank you, friendly spirituality, mentors of this group, mentors of us here incarnated and doing the study tonight. We thank you for your guidance and patience with us, not only on study group times, but in our daily lives. Us that are going through this very imperfect world in our very imperfect ways, we thank you for your support and help and guidance. And we ask your help, even in the cases when we are not open to listen, when we are not vibrating on the same frequency. We thank you for never giving up on us. We ask that you bless this week, that will carry on until next Wednesday, when we reunite again here in the same building to renew this great energy. Thank you, Miss Auckland. Thank you, everyone at home. We are going to say goodbye now in our transmission. We'll see you next week at the same time at 7:15.